ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for watching the show. This is your Top Intelligence Agencies review, and I'm your host, Bryce Dolan. Today on the show, we're going to look at 5 different top intelligence agencies and look at the top stories from each one of their websites. To begin the show, NATO Deputy Secretary General Rose Gottemoeller and allies welcomed Vadim Chernysh, Minister of Ukraine for the temporarily occupied territories and internally displaced persons, to NATO headquarters for the first time on Tuesday, November 15th. In a meeting of the NATO-Ukraine Commission, Minister Chernysh briefed allies on the security situation in Ukraine, as well as the challenges faced by refugees and internally displaced people. Allies expressed concern over the humanitarian situation in the conflict zone, as well as human rights abuses in Crimea. They also underscored the importance of the full implementation of the Minsk agreements. Allies reiterated that NATO will continue to provide strong political and practical support to Ukraine as the government pursues vital reforms in the defense and security sectors. So we've touched on Ukraine and Crimea a number of times in earlier segments, and from this short story here, it looks like NATO is going to continue to back Ukraine as this conflict continues and they pursue vital reforms. Now moving on next to the FBI. Now, hate crimes can have a devastating impact upon the communities where they occur, which is one of the reasons why the investigation of hate crimes that fall under federal jurisdiction is the #1 priority under the FBI's Civil Rights Program. But in addition to its investigative work, the FBI gathers and publishes, through its Uniform Crime Reporting Program, hate crime statistics from law enforcement agencies across the country to help provide an accurate accounting of the problem by state and nationally. And today, the Bureau released its latest hate crime statistics report, this one containing data from 2015. That includes information detailing the offenses, victims, offenders, and locations of the hate crimes. The 2015 collection marks the 25th anniversary of the Bureau's work to compile data about bias-motivated crimes, which began in 1990. This year's report, which contains data from 14,997 law enforcement agencies, reveals 5,850 criminal incidents and 6,885 related offenses that were motivated by bias against race, ethnicity, ancestry, religion, sexual orientation, disability, gender, and gender identity. There were 5,818 single bias incidents involving 7,121 victims. Of those victims, 59.2% were targeted because of a race, ethnicity, or ancestry bias, 19.7% because of a religious bias, 17.7% because of a sexual orientation bias, 1.7% because of a gender identity bias, 1.2% because of a disability bias, and 0.4% because of a gender bias. Of the 4,482 hate crime offenses classified as crimes against persons, intimidation accounted for 41.3% of those offenses, while 37.8% involved simple assault and 19.7% involved aggravated assault. During 2015, most reported hate crime incidents, 31.5%, happened in or near residents or homes. Of the 5,493 known offenders, 48.4% were white, 24.3% were black or African American, and race was unknown for 16.2% of the offenders. The rest were of various other races. New to the 2015 Hate Crime Statistic Report is the inclusion of 7 additional religious anti-bias categories: anti-Buddhist, anti-Eastern Orthodox, anti-Hindu, anti-Jehovah Witness, anti-Mormon, anti-other Christian, and anti-Sikh, as well as an anti-Arab bias motivation. So there are a large number of categories that a hate crime can fall into, a number of biases that can involve a hate crime. It said just this year they added 7 additional religious anti-bias categories: Buddhist, Eastern Orthodox, a number of them. That is incredible. And I don't know if incredible is the right word to use, but I mean, it's scary. It's scary that the hate, from these statistics, it looks like the hate is continuing to grow. Now our next story, we're going to take a look at a video from the Oklahoma National Guard. Check it out.
Oh yo, oh yo, oh yo, oh yeah, yeah, oh yo, oh yo, oh yo,
My grandfather was a Kiowa veteran, served in World War II, and I've always aspired to be like him. I've always aspired his way about how he treated people, and I think his discipline, the hard work that he performed when I was young, kind of ingrained in my mind the kind of person I wanted to be. And he was a veteran, so he's proud. He was proud to serve in World War II, so that always stayed with me.
I come from a long line of service members. So I had my grandmother's father fought in World War II. My granddad was in Korea, and I have 3 uncles that went to Vietnam, 1 Desert Storm, 1 Desert Shield. So I come from a long line of military people, and like I said, I come from a very patriotic family.
It's always been something I've wanted to do, was join the military, ever since I was a kid. I did 4 years active duty, and then I've done 13 years in the Guard, but I immediately jumped right in and was willing to do whatever the Guard needed me to do.
There have been numerous Native Americans who've served in the Oklahoma National Guard. I know a lot of my relatives from our Kiowa Black Leggings. They served in World War II with the 45th Infantry Division, and also in Korea. Knowing that there were a lot of American Indians that have served in the 45th Infantry Division and the Oklahoma National Guard, it only makes me feel like, you know, that's serving a purpose in our communities. Indians want to be a part of it and know that they're taking care of their people.
My grandma would say, hey, your Grandpa Spurt was part of the 45th. And as a kid, I would say that, okay, that's cool. And I'd see his dog tags. Once I came into the Guard and understood what the 45th was, I realized, and you know, he's passed away, my grandparents passed away, but I still have his patch and dog tags from back then.
Through the course of history, American Indians have always had warriors, people that were protectors of their families, their homes, their land even. There's something about American Indians, they have that ingrained in their genes. They place a high priority on taking care of people who can't take care of others. And I think that's something in our Native American culture. We hold our veterans in high regard. And our Kiowa tribe has always been a very warlike tribe, and our Kiowa veterans have found a way to adapt using the United States military service now to serve a purpose within our community. We have a word in my language that says "kat-ai," and that means a person who is a protector of all people who can't fight for themselves. And I think that translates into our United States military culture, especially the Guard, because we're all civilians during the day. We go to, you know, our daily jobs. On the weekends we do our weekend drills. But I feel like the Oklahoma National Guardsman knows what it's like to take care of people and try to do for others. And I think that correlates with our American Indian philosophy of what it is to be a warrior.
We hold the military in high respect. So anything that the military needs me to do, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to give the military everything I have.
If you're a member of any of the Guard, you're already a member of a tribe because the similarities are parallel to each other. You may not be blood related to each other, just like any tribal member, but you're going to become family. You learn each other's strengths and each other's weaknesses, and I think especially on deployments or even AT, you understand that leaning on each other becomes a part of your survival. So it's exactly the same as being in the tribe.
I'm just proud to be an American Indian serving the military. Per capita, American Indians serve the most amongst all other race and ethnicities in the United States. You know, after everything that has been, the policies that have been implemented on American Indian cultures and communities, we're still here, and we still have viable cultures alive, but we are able to blend and tie those cultures together to where we are now a soldier in the United States Army, and able to tie that to bring our American Indian culture along with us, makes us a better person, and makes us look with new perspective on things. And I think that's what American Indians bring to the Guard. They bring that warrior aspect, that warrior perspective that may have been taught in their own communities into the Guard. So that's what I'm proud of.
A great video there from the National Guard. Now next we visit the Coast Guard. There is more than 96,000 feet of elevation change, over 50,000 feet of ascent, and 205.8 miles of trail awaiting competitors of the Bigfoot 200 endurance run. The views of misty mountains, volcanoes, lakes, streams, rivers, and forests are astounding. To call it just another marathon wouldn't do it justice. Runners must complete the race in 105 hours or less, and any time a runner takes to rest counts towards their overall time. Although there are 6 sleep stations, some racers go the full run without sleep. Coast Guardsman Lieutenant Commander Russell Merrick, stationed in North Bend, Oregon, was one of those who chose to complete the race with no sleep. The day of the run, Merrick woke up at 5 a.m. and drove 2.5 hours before spending the next nearly 105 hours running. Merrick's determination and drive allowed him to complete this event. "I'm getting old in the tooth, but I'll still get out there and run stupid distances," said the 38-year-old. "I'm not fast by any means, but I can set a comfortable pace and run all day. I've been able to get some of the young pups to come out and join me in lunchtime runs and for some trips to the mountains. It's fun to get people out there to try things they might have initially thought were beyond their capabilities or out of their comfort zones." So Merrick and other Coast Guardsmen actually finished the race together with nearly 30 minutes left to spare of that 105-hour time limit. So referring to this as just another marathon wouldn't even do it justice by any means. 105 straight hours of running with no sleep. Technically, Merrick did it in 104 and a half hours, but we'll round up. We'll go to 105. I can't even imagine running for a regular marathon, let alone one that you don't sleep for a straight 105 hours. So what a great accomplishment there by these Coast Guardsmen. And if you want to look up into this entire article and read this entire story about Coast Guardsman Lieutenant Commander Russell Merrick, I encourage you to check it out. It is pretty interesting. I'd never heard about this Bigfoot 200 endurance run until now, and now I think I'm going to follow it every year to see how many people do it. Now we're going to end the show with a story about the president-elect, but one you may not have heard about in the mainstream media or on national news. But according to the Secret Service, a Fairview Park man was charged in federal court for making threats against President-elect Donald Trump, said U.S. Attorney Carol S. Rendon and Craig Wisniewski, special agent in charge of the Secret Service Cleveland office. Zachary Benson, 24, posted threats on his Twitter account around 1 a.m. on November 9th, including, "My life goal is to assassinate Trump. Don't care if I serve infinite sentences. That man deserves to decease existing." According to an affidavit filed in the case, Benson later admitted to making the remarks after watching election returns. He said he had no intentions related to the post and was frustrated about the president-elect's policies, according to the affidavit. If convicted, the defendant's sentence will be determined by the court after review of factors unique to this case, including the defendant's prior criminal record, if any, the defendant's role in the offense, and the characteristics of the violation. In all cases, the sentence will not exceed the statutory maximum, and in most cases, it will be less than the maximum. This case is being prosecuted by Assistant U.S. Attorney Kerry Howard following investigation by the U.S. Secret Service. A charge is not evidence of guilt. A defendant is entitled to a fair trial in which it will be the government's burden to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So this was just one case of a 24-year-old gentleman speaking out on Twitter claiming he was going to assassinate Trump. I don't know if this was the only case, but they're going to have to figure out how to go about this. Yes, that was a serious thing he tweeted out over Twitter. Is it worth giving this guy a couple years in prison or even a couple months in jail for? I don't know. Maybe some probation and a slap on the wrist, maybe to say, hey, don't do it again. But maybe we'll see. We'll see if there's an update and see what the court comes to decide. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you can check out all of these articles in their entirety by clicking on the links below in the description. I encourage you to check out the articles and go to their respective websites. Some of these stories are quite amazing. But I want to thank you for watching the show. That does it for our top intelligence agencies review. I was your host, Bryce Dolan, so make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, like our Facebook, or follow us on Twitter so you don't miss a show. Again, thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I was your host, Bryce Dolan.